Welcome to episode 11 of Book Nerd Paradise, where we get to know an author as they tell us one of their favorite quotes, read from their work, pose a trivia question, and give away a book or two. Hi, I'm LRW Lee, author of the Andy Smithson Epic Fantasy Adventure Series. As always, remember Book One, the eBook, is available for free download on Amazon, so if you haven't done so already, please get your copy. Today, we welcome YA fantasy author Morgan Wylie as our guest. Morgan published her first novel, Silent Orchid, 1 year after moving across the country with her family on a journey of new discovery. After an amazing 3 years in Nashville, Tennessee, Morgan and her family found their way back to the Northwest, where they now reside. Still working every day with great optimism, Morgan continues to embrace all things mama, wife, teacher, and mediator to the many voices and muses constantly chattering in her head, where, as Morgan says, it gets pretty loud. Welcome, Morgan.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So let's start this episode with a giveaway. Morgan, what will you be giving away to our listeners?
Okay, today I will be giving away a signed paperback of my first novel, Silent Orchids.
Excellent. I'm sure people will, especially after hearing you read from it, be very anxious to get themselves a copy. In order to enter to win, all you need to do is over on YouTube, leave a comment about this episode. That's all it takes. It's super simple. Leave a comment. Liking it's not going to enter you, but just leave a really short comment and you're good to go. Morgan, would you give us a brief synopsis of The Orchids, which is book 1 in the Age of Alandria series, which currently has 3 books in it with 2 more to come, as I understand?
Yes, that is the goal. So I'm going to read the blurb from Silent Orchids to give you an idea of that book, and I'll recap the rest of the series. A dying realm. The ancient evil of the Drakshul has been unleashed. The orchids have been silenced, but for how long? Dagon, elite of the Pharishan warrior tribe of fairies, is charged with a mission to find the Soul Lumieth, a mysterious new power that could change the fate of all in the realm of Alandria. But he is conflicted by his purpose, and he cannot trust the motives of those he serves. He has too many questions, and they must be answered. Haley, a girl abandoned as a small child just outside Missoula, Montana, is now 18. She is trying to discover who she is and where she belongs. In her heart, she feels she has family out there, somewhere. Desperate to unravel the mysteries of her past, she embarks on a journey that will forever change her, along with her 2 best friends, Finn and Shell, who have secrets of their own. Book 2 and Book 3 continue the journey as Kaylee and her friends are discovering many new truths and fantastic journeys.
Morgan, you've selected one of your favorite quotes to share with our listeners. What is it and why is it a favorite?
Okay, this was a really hard one for me because I love quotes, so I have lots of them all over the place. But I chose one by Henry David Thoreau. It says, "Not until we are lost do we begin to find ourselves." And for me, it speaks to me personally, but I feel like it can speak to anyone. But I feel in my life, there was a time where before I began writing, I was struggling to find what I wanted to do with my life, where I belonged, what was my purpose. And I feel like I came to the end of my rope and I was just stuck. And out of that, opportunities began to open up and I began to find my passion and what I love and find where I belong. And I feel like so many people can apply that to their lives, but also as a writer, I feel like as I'm writing and I get stuck in a scene or I'm struggling to find where the story is going, that if I get myself backed into a wall, then all of a sudden I can see everything before me and choose a path and continue to move forward and find myself, find my characters and the story as I go.
You'll be reading from Silent Orchids. Would you briefly set up the scene you'll be reading from and then go ahead and share with us?
Okay, I will be reading from chapter 20, And it is where Kaylee and her friends, there are 4 main characters, and they have found themselves traveling to the realm of Alandria. They're traveling through a dark tunnel. What is that? Can the others see it? The small but subtle source of light in the darkness sparked a flicker of peace in her gut, easing her fears. Unfortunately, the feeling was short-lived as she heard scuttling noises to the right of her head. She shrieked a girly shriek and jumped to the side, causing the others behind her to be yanked with her. Great, I scream like a girl, but hello, I am a girl who doesn't like creepy crawly things in dark tunnels. What is that? Shell loudly whispered nervously from behind her. It's probably nothing, Kaylee stammered, remembering Shell was even more jumpy than she was, attempting to keep her friend calm. Oh, great. There's something in here, isn't there? Shell asked suddenly, much more calmly than Kaylee would have given her credit for. Not even a second later, Shell inhaled sharply. I think something just ran over my foot, she whispered, trying not to freak out, but on the verge of not succeeding. I'm sure it's not, Kaylee started, but cut herself off with her own sharp intake of breath. It just ran over mine, too. Shell huddled as close to Kaylee as she could, pulling Finn along behind her. Be quiet, Dagan growled, still trying to drag them along behind him with difficulty. Kaylee could hear Finn irritated as well, but also laughing under his breath, probably at how irritated they had made Dagan. The girls were squirming and jumping, not wanting to walk on the ground for long enough to let anything else reach them. At least they hadn't screamed. At least not until something grabbed or latched onto Shell's ankle and caused her to stumble into Kaylee's back, which in turn made her stumble into Dagan's back. That's when the screaming began. Dagan turned abruptly. Fire lit his eyes again. Kaylee didn't know if the others could see it, but she figured they probably could when instantly Shell's screams stopped and Finn's words trying to calm Shell fell flat. However, she knew they couldn't see him eye the snake of a vine that crept out from the wall of the tunnel and then slash it in half with his sword, severing its connection to Shell's ankle. Only because of the low wattage energy coming from where their hands met could she see anything. You are released, Shell. Please, we must hurry, unless you want to spend eternity circling this tunnel never to see the light of day. He tugged Kaylee's hand and they all began to move. Thank you, Shell got out while she was trying to catch her breath. After what seemed like forever walking in utter silence, the pressure shifted again, as though they had walked out of an atmospheric bubble. They stumbled into each other as they were spit out into another forest. This forest, however, was unusually all-encompassing. So dense, all you could see were trees upon trees. This forest, different than the one they left, was old as time. It felt mysterious and alive. Very alive. They all stood there for several minutes, taking it in. Kaylee took a deep, invigorating breath, soaking in the natural scent. Renewed energy shot through her faster than ever before in a natural environment. A weight lifted off her. She felt alive and refreshed for the first time, well, ever. We got through, Shell exclaimed, stating the obvious, but excited nonetheless. Dagan looked at all of them, his eyes finally landing on Shell with a thoughtful expression, and said, Yes, you did. Interesting. I will admit I was unsure if you would make it, but now that you have, we continue on. Kaylee looked at his expression, realizing he was trying to figure Shell out. He turned and started to walk, then what he said registered in her brain. He had not been addressing Shell specifically. Wait, Kaylee held up her hand. You didn't think she would make it, but you still let her through? Her volume was beginning to rise. So if she hadn't made it, what would have happened? She'd get bounced back to where we came from? She looked from Dagan, his expressionless face, to Finn's stony face, and then back to Dagan's. He shrugged. No, she'd die. Kaylee was livid. Finn's hand on her forearm stopped her from going any further with her thoughts. I wouldn't have let her go through if I thought she wouldn't have made it, Finn said, speaking for the first time since they'd arrived at the mountain. Looking at Shell, now having wandered about 10 yards ahead of them all, Kaylee lost her anger, only to replace it with apprehension. Head cocked and eyes closed, Kaylee could see her friend paying attention to something else entirely. Very unusual for Shell, something was stirring. A warm breeze came upon them, carrying with it the subtle tinkling sound of soft chimes. It circled playfully around each of them. As suddenly as the sound rushed through, it departed. A rustling above them drew their attention as old oaks, Cedars and other pillars of the earth began to sway their branches and creak with the wind. Dagon was stiff, but when wasn't he? His gaze alert and searching. He turned in a slow, cautious circle, as did the rest of the group, trying to see what had alerted his senses. All except Kaylee. She stood very still as a small ball of brilliantly bright white light floated slowly down from high in the trees to right before her face. Kaylee strived to call out to Dagon, but she had no voice. Panic welled up inside her as she realized she couldn't move. A moment later, a serene feeling of peace flooded her and she relaxed. Everyone else had stopped moving and was staring at her, well, at it, the light, as it then moved to hover in front of Dagon. He bowed gracefully as it flitted in front of him, then swirled back around Kaylee on its way back up into the trees from whence it came. It made a beautiful sound like a song of the most delicate wind chimes as it departed. There had been a subtle subtext, almost like a whispered voice in her mind underlying the chimes. The words were spoken softly in an alluringly beautiful and hypnotic sound, with many voices that were individual yet one. Welcome, Kalena, daughter of the orchids. Welcome to Alandria.
Ooh, okay. So, who is this person? So, our guest author last week, sci-fi author Risa Walker, posed a trivia question for us.
Okay, my question was from the Dark Tower series by Stephen King, one of my favorites. And the question that I asked, there's a character in the series named Oi. What is Oi? And the answer to that question is Oi is a billy bumbler. Similar to a dog, for those of you who haven't read the series, except he has some other attributes that are kind of cool. So,
Morgan, you have a trivia question for our listeners. What is it?
In the movie, The Never-Ending Story, what is the name of the luck dragon?
Morgan will reveal the answer to this trivia conundrum in our next episode. So make sure that you subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the answer if you don't know. So Morgan, any final thoughts you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to thank you for having me today, and thank you, listeners, for listening and joining in. I also just would like to say, if you're a writer out there watching, keep writing. Follow your dreams, pursue your passions. It applies to everyone listening. If you're a reader, keep reading. You are the wings for our words. You give our stories life and keep them moving forward. So thank you for that. And stay tuned. Book 4 in the series should be out this fall, and I've got a couple other side projects I'm working on too. So
excellent. Can't wait to see what's coming up. So I hope you've enjoyed getting to know Morgan Wylie a little bit. I'm LRW Lee, author of the Andy Smithson Epic Fantasy Adventure Series. And as I mentioned before, the ebook of Book 1, Blast of the Dragon's Fury, is available free for download from Amazon. Our guest next episode will be YA fantasy author Nicole Lukin. She's the author of numerous YA books, including the popular Violet Eyes series, and she'll be reading from her just-released novel, Through Fire and Sea, where the 17-year-old Leah is the illegitimate daughter of one of the realm's most powerful lords. She discovers she's a caller gifted with the unique and dangerous ability to call her other selves in mirror worlds, and her father will do anything to use her powers for his own purposes. Sounds like a fascinating read to me, so we'll find out more about that next episode. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you again next Monday. Click the button to subscribe to the Book Nerd Paradise YouTube channel so you don't miss upcoming authors, giveaways, and answers to trivia questions.